There are moments in life when a quiet question echoes inside us, often in the stillness of night or in the middle of ordinary days. Why am I here? What is the real purpose of my existence? For most of us, the ready-made answer is happiness. We strive for success, recognition, wealth, or love, believing that when we finally have them, the restlessness within will settle. Yet even as we collect achievements, laughter, and fleeting pleasures, a subtle emptiness lingers. Like a shadow, it waits behind every celebration, reminding us that joy, as we usually pursue it, does not last. This paradox of life has haunted humanity for centuries. We chase after happiness as if it were the summit of all meaning, but the closer we get, the more it slips away. Social media amplifies the illusion. Smiling faces, perfect vacations, glittering careers. Behind the screens, however, lie hearts that still ache, people who wonder why the dream feels incomplete. It is here, at the edge of disillusionment, that a deeper question begins to form. Perhaps life is not about constant happiness at all. Perhaps its meaning lies elsewhere, in a truth that cannot be bought, compared, or uploaded. More than 2,500 years ago, the Buddha faced this same riddle. As a prince, he knew privilege, comfort, and promise, yet he walked away from it all to answer a question that no wealth could silence. What is the true purpose of life? His journey was not into more pleasure, but into understanding, not into possessions, but into freedom. What he discovered still speaks to us today, perhaps even more urgently in a world overwhelmed by distraction and desire. This exploration we are about to enter is not merely philosophy. It is an invitation to look within, to challenge the assumptions we have inherited, and to see whether the Buddha's insight might illuminate the path through our own struggles. For beyond the noise of ambition and the fragility of happiness lies something far greater, a freedom that does not fade when circumstances change, a peace untouched by gain or loss. To uncover that is to uncover life's real purpose. The modern misunderstanding of life's purpose. For most of humanity, happiness has always been presented as the ultimate destination. From childhood, we are told that we must study hard to secure a career, work tirelessly to gain success, fall in love, and build a family to feel complete. Happiness in this narrative is the final prize, the proof that our lives have meaning, and so an invisible belief takes root. If we are not yet happy, it means we are missing something. And if we are missing something, then we must keep chasing until we find it. The modern world has turned this belief into a never-ending race. Advertisements flash across our screens daily, promising that joy is just one more purchase away. Social media feeds overflow with smiling faces, exotic vacations, and seemingly perfect romances, convincing us that others are living the dream while we lag behind. The culture of achievement insists that our worth is measured by the size of our salary, the prestige of our title, or the magnitude of our accomplishments. Together, these messages form a chorus that hypnotizes us. Keep running, happiness is waiting just ahead. But do we ever truly catch up? Think of your own experience. How many times have you longed for something, a new phone, a new job, a new relationship, and felt exhilarated when you finally obtained it? And how many times did that joy fade faster than you expected? The once shiny phone soon became ordinary. The exciting job grew heavy with stress. The passionate romance softened into everyday quarrels and compromises. This is the nature of what psychologists call hedonic adaptation, our built-in tendency to return to a baseline of discontent no matter how high the emotional peak. No matter how sweet the victory, we adapt and the craving begins again. In today's world, this trap is magnified by constant comparison. On social media, people share their brightest moments while hiding their shadows. We, in turn, compare our hardest days to their curated highlights and conclude that we are falling behind. Someone else buys a home, another marries a beautiful partner, another flaunts a holiday abroad. The more we scroll, the more we feel inadequate, whispering to ourselves, "I'm not enough. I need more. I must keep going." And so the wheel of striving spins faster, but the destination never arrives. Even when we succeed, joy often comes paired with fear. The promotion we celebrated now brings anxiety about keeping the position. The love we found awakens the dread of losing it. The wealth we accumulated demands sleepless nights of guarding and managing it. In this way, the very things we thought would secure happiness become seeds of worry. The paradox is cruel. The harder we clutch at happiness, the easier it slips away. This is why, despite unprecedented comfort and wealth, modern societies are not necessarily happier. Rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness rise even in the most developed nations. A person can sit in a luxurious apartment with food, entertainment, and technology at their fingertips and still feel that gnawing emptiness inside. They cannot explain it, only sense that no matter what they achieve, something essential is missing. The problem is not happiness itself. Happiness is natural, a beautiful part of life, like sunlight or a gentle breeze. The problem is the misunderstanding. We have mistaken happiness for life's ultimate purpose, when in truth it is only a passing guest. Happiness was never meant to be chained. It was meant to be welcomed when it arrives and released when it goes. When we try to trap it, joy transforms into restlessness. In the pursuit of it becomes suffering itself. This is the great misunderstanding of our age, the belief that life's purpose is to secure a permanent state of happiness. It is this very belief that fuels endless striving and leaves us perpetually dissatisfied. It is this illusion that blinds us to deeper truths, truths that the Buddha uncovered more than 2,500 years ago. And it is here, at the limits of our mistaken chase, that we are invited to turn toward his wisdom, to discover that life may be pointing us not toward fleeting happiness, but towards something far more enduring. Testimonies from the successful who still felt empty. If the meaning of life were truly to be found in happiness, then we would expect those who have climbed to the summit of human ambition to have already discovered it. Surely the billionaires, the celebrities, the innovators, and the icons, the ones who hold the world's attention, should be the very people who live in perpetual fulfillment. Yet paradoxically, their confessions reveal something strikingly different. Their lives, examined closely, show that happiness built on external achievement is like a house built on sand. It dazzles for a while, but when the storms of life arrive, it cannot stand. Jim Carrey once captured this paradox with brutal honesty. At the height of fame, adored worldwide, and swimming in financial abundance, he remarked, "I wish everyone could get rich and famous and have everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." His words pierce the heart because they reveal a reality that few dare to say aloud. The glitter of success conceals an inner void. To millions, Carey seemed like a man who had everything, but in truth, he had discovered what the Buddha taught centuries earlier, that satisfaction based on external conditions is fleeting. It shines bright, then fades like smoke. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple and one of the most influential figures of the modern age, provides another haunting example. Jobs revolutionized industries, built an empire of innovation, and left behind a technological legacy that reshaped human communication. Yet as cancer slowly claimed his body, his reflections turned not to his wealth or achievements, but to regret and longing. In a widely circulated letter near the end of his life, Jobs admitted that worldly success could not buy true peace or meaning. In the end, he wrote, "Only love matters." His testimony shows us that even at the pinnacle of power, the human heart still aches for something deeper than recognition and wealth. It longs for connection, compassion, and the quiet stability of inner freedom. The tragedy of Robin Williams, a man who seemed to embody laughter itself, deepens this lesson. Millions of people grew up smiling at his characters, whether the playful genie in Aladdin or the tender teacher in Dead Poets Society. Yet behind the curtain, Williams wrestled with an inner storm of despair. His passing shocked the world precisely because it shattered the illusion that outward joy reflects inner peace. If even those who dedicate their lives to entertaining others and spreading happiness can themselves feel unbearably empty, then perhaps happiness, as we usually define it, is not the ultimate answer. And these stories are not confined to Hollywood or Silicon Valley. Consider the countless professional athletes who, after winning championships, sink into depression, or musicians who, after selling out stadiums, confess to feeling utterly alone in hotel rooms, or entrepreneurs who, after selling companies for billions, describe an eerie hollowness. The pattern repeats across industries, across cultures, and across generations. External victories do not silence the inner voice that whispers, "Is this all there is?" Even ordinary lives, far from the spotlight, mirror this truth in quieter ways. Think of the retiree who worked tirelessly for decades, believing that leisure would finally bring peace, only to find themselves restless and adrift once the goal was achieved. Or the young graduate who thought a dream job would end all doubts, only to discover new anxieties waiting on the other side. These are not failures of ambition, but failures of assumption. The assumption that fulfillment comes from accumulation. The deeper problem is not success itself, but the belief that success guarantees purpose. Modern culture worships more money, more likes, more achievements, yet never tells us what enough actually looks like. This endless pursuit mirrors what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. No matter how much we gain, our expectations rise to match it, and we find ourselves running harder without ever arriving. The testimonies of the rich and famous simply expose on a grand stage what most of us feel in smaller ways every day. And here lies the echo of the Buddha's journey. Long before Hollywood, Wall Street, or Silicon Valley existed, Siddhartha Gautama sat in his palace surrounded by abundance. He had luxury, family, and privilege beyond measure. Yet he too felt the same restlessness that echoes in the words of Jim Carrey, Steve Jobs, Robin Williams, and countless others. The ache of dissatisfaction does not discriminate. It comes to princes and paupers, celebrities and laborers alike. This universal truth was the seed of the Buddha's search. When we hear these voices from the pinnacle of worldly success confessing emptiness, we should not dismiss them as anomalies. Rather, they are signals, reminders pointing us back to a deeper question. If success and pleasure are not the answer, what is? These stories prepare the ground for the Buddha's timeless teaching, that life's real purpose is not the accumulation of happiness, but the liberation from the cycle of craving and dissatisfaction that keeps us endlessly chasing shadows. The Buddha's perspective, life is the truth of suffering, dukkha. When Siddhartha Gautama, the prince who would become the Buddha, left his palace, he was not seeking another luxury or another victory. He was searching for truth. He had seen that even with abundance, the human heart was restless. No feast, no palace walls, no pleasures of the senses could shield him from the universal realities of aging, sickness, and death. These encounters shook him to the core and revealed a truth that glittering pleasures often conceal, that life, in its very fabric, carries dissatisfaction. The Buddha called this reality dukkha. It is often translated as suffering, but the word is more nuanced. Dukkha includes obvious pain, illness, grief, loss, but it also points to subtle restlessness, the feeling that even good things slip through our fingers. Dukkha is the unease we feel when joy fades, when love changes, when possessions decay, when even in moments of triumph, a whisper of impermanence lingers. Think of the joy of eating your favorite meal. For a moment it feels complete, yet as the plate empties, a small sadness appears. The pleasure cannot stay. Or consider the thrill of falling in love. In the beginning it feels like the world has changed forever. But as time passes, challenges emerge. Disagreements, distance, or the inevitable fact that one day separation will come, whether through circumstance or death. Even the brightest love story contains the seed of loss. This is not to say that food or love are bad, but that their impermanence means they cannot serve as the foundation for ultimate peace. The Buddha summarized this reality in his first sermon after enlightenment, where he declared, "Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow is suffering, separation from loved ones is suffering, and the attainment of what one desires is suffering. Suffering, death is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are suffering. Association with the unloved is suffering. Separation from the loved is suffering. Not getting what one wants is suffering. In brief, the five aggregates of clinging are suffering." This teaching was not a pessimistic view that life is nothing but misery. On the contrary, it was a diagnosis, like a doctor naming an illness. not to condemn the patient, but to open the path to healing. To understand dukkha is to recognize why even those who have it all still feel empty, why every triumph eventually fades, why every pleasure carries within it the seed of its opposite. Modern psychology echoes this insight. Studies on hedonic adaptation show that human beings quickly return to a baseline of mood, no matter the highs or lows. Win the lottery, and within months, happiness levels return to where they were before. Suffer a setback, and over time, the sting softens. Life continually oscillates, never allowing us to hold on to joy forever or avoid pain completely. The Buddha named this dynamic centuries ago, but his teaching went further. He revealed that suffering is not only in the external world, it is intensified by the way we relate to life. We cling to pleasure, demanding it last forever. We resist pain, demanding it disappear instantly. We build identities around our bodies, our possessions, our relationships, forgetting that all are subject to change. Thus, suffering is not merely out there. It is in our craving, our resistance, our illusions. Imagine holding sand tightly in your fist. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. In the same way, the harder we cling to life's pleasures, the faster they escape us, leaving cuts of disappointment in their wake. The Buddha saw this and understood. The problem is not that life contains change, but that we resist change. The river flows, but we suffer because we want it to stay still. Recognizing dukkha is the first step, the foundation upon which all Buddhist practice rests. It is not meant to depress us, but to awaken us, to strip away illusions that keep us running endlessly on the treadmill of desire. Just as the testimonies of Jim Carrey, Steve Jobs, and Robin Williams expose the limits of success and pleasure, the Buddha's first noble truth invites us to admit, happiness, as we usually define it, will never be enough. Yet the Buddha did not stop there. If he had, his teaching would be despair. Instead, he showed that by understanding the causes of dukkha and walking a path of practice, freedom is possible. That freedom is not a fleeting pleasure, but an unshakable peace, what he called nirvana, the cause of suffering, craving, and clinging. If the first noble truth is the diagnosis, that life by its nature contains dissatisfaction, the second noble truth is the identification of the cause. The Buddha, with the clarity of a physician, declared that suffering arises from tanha, often translated as craving, thirst, or unquenchable desire. It is not simply wanting, but a restless hunger, a grasping that never feels complete. This craving appears in many forms. We crave sensory pleasures, delicious food, beautiful sights, soothing music, physical comfort. We crave existence, to be someone important, to have recognition, to secure a stable identity. We also crave non-existence, to escape pain, to end discomfort, to numb our struggles. All these forms of craving, the Buddha taught, tie us into the cycle of dissatisfaction because they are built upon the illusion that something permanent can be gained in an impermanent world. Think about the way modern consumer culture works. Every advertisement whispers the same message. You are not enough as you are. But if you buy this, achieve this, experience this, you will be complete. So we chase the next phone, the next vacation, the next promotion. For a moment, the craving feels satisfied, but almost instantly a new hunger arises. The latest phone becomes outdated, the vacation ends, the promotion leads to higher expectations. The thirst continues like drinking salt water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. This endless cycle is not limited to material goods. Relationships, too, can become entangled in craving. We long for love, expecting another person to complete us. But when they cannot meet our every need, frustration arises. We cling to ideals of how they should be, or we fear losing them, creating anxiety. Instead of enjoying the reality of love as it is, craving distorts it into possession and attachment. The Buddha also used the word upadana, clinging, to describe how craving hardens into attachment. If craving is the spark, clinging is the fire. We take our desires and fuse them with identity. This is mine. This defines me. Without it, I am nothing. We cling to youth, forgetting that age is inevitable. We cling to wealth, forgetting that fortune shifts. We cling to views and opinions, defending them fiercely, forgetting that truth is often larger than our perspective. The tighter we hold, the more fragile we become. A powerful example of this can be seen in the lives of celebrities who fear losing relevance. They cling to fame as their identity. The applause becomes their lifeblood. Yet applause, like all things, fades. When the public's attention shifts, many struggle with depression, addiction, or despair. Their suffering is not only because fame is fleeting, but because they clung to it as if it could last forever. The Buddha's teaching on craving does not condemn desire altogether. Desire in itself can be natural, wanting food when hungry, seeking shelter in the rain. But it is the unwise craving, the insatiable thirst for permanence in a transient world, that traps us. When we demand that what is changing should remain unchanged, suffering is born. We might ask, is craving always harmful? Interestingly, Buddhist tradition makes a subtle distinction. There is a kind of wholesome aspiration, the desire for wisdom, compassion, liberation, that is not rooted in greed, but in clarity. The difference lies in whether desire enslaves us or guides us toward freedom. Understanding the role of craving and clinging is a turning point. It reveals that suffering is not random, nor is it inflicted by a cruel universe. It arises from within, from the way we relate to experience. This recognition is both sobering and empowering. Sobering because it shows us how much of our pain is self-made. Empowering because if the cause lies within, so too does the possibility of release. The Buddha illustrated this with a simple image. Imagine a man shot by an arrow. The pain of the wound is unavoidable. That is life's dukkha. But if he clings to the arrow, refusing to let it go, or if he twists it deeper by obsession and resistance, the suffering multiplies. Craving and clinging are the hands that keep pushing the arrow further into the flesh. Freedom begins when we learn to loosen the grip. The second noble truth, then, is not a condemnation of human life, but a compassionate unveiling of its mechanism. By seeing craving clearly, we can begin to understand why joy is fleeting, why emptiness follows achievement, why loss feels unbearable, and in that understanding, the path to peace begins to open. The end of suffering, the possibility of nirvana. The Buddha's teaching is often compared to the work of a great physician. First, he diagnoses the illness, suffering, or dukkha. Then he identifies its cause, craving and clinging, tanha and upadana. But what makes his message truly revolutionary is the next step, the declaration that this illness can be healed. Suffering is not inevitable, not an eternal curse. There is a cure, a freedom, a possibility of complete peace. This is the third noble truth, the cessation of suffering, known as nirvana. The word nirvana literally means blowing out, as one extinguishes a flame. It is the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, the three poisons that keep the wheel of suffering turning. To the modern mind, this might sound abstract or even negative, as if nirvana were simply nothingness. But the Buddha was clear. It is not annihilation. It is liberation. It is the profound relief of being free from the compulsive thirst that drives human dissatisfaction. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack for years without realizing it. You struggle, sweat, and suffer, believing this burden to be part of life. Then one day you discover you can set it down. The sudden lightness, the freedom to move without strain, that is a glimpse of what nirvana represents. It is not about adding something new to your life, but about releasing what has weighed you down all along. The Buddha often spoke of nirvana in poetic terms because ordinary language struggles to capture its depth. He called it the unborn, the unaging, the deathless. He described it as the supreme peace, the island safe from the flood, the refuge beyond sorrow. These descriptions do not define nirvana, but gesture toward it, inviting us to sense that there is a reality beyond the usual push and pull of craving. One way to understand nirvana is to reflect on how much of our ordinary happiness depends on conditions. We say, I'll be happy when I get this job, when I fall in love, when I travel there, when my health improves. Our joy rises and falls like a stock market, dependent on gains and terrified of losses. But what if there were a happiness not dependent on conditions? What if peace could exist even in the midst of sickness, even in the face of loss, even as life changes? That unconditional peace is the heart of nirvana. Consider the example of modern addiction to technology. Many people feel compelled to check their phones hundreds of times a day, scrolling endlessly for stimulation or approval. This craving creates restlessness. The more we consume, the less satisfied we feel. Now imagine someone who sees through the illusion, who no longer seeks identity in likes or distractions. They use technology wisely, without clinging, without hunger. Their mind feels lighter, freer. That small freedom hints at the vast liberation the Buddha pointed to. Nirvana is not a place to which we travel after death, nor a paradise in the sky. It is a realization of the nature of reality, attainable here and now. The Buddha himself emphasized that nirvana can be experienced in this very life, through the transformation of the heart and mind. It is not escapism, but awakening, a clear seeing that liberates us from the compulsive habits of grasping and aversion. For many, the idea of nirvana seems remote, almost beyond reach. Yet the Buddha insisted that it is possible for anyone who walks the path sincerely. He himself was once an ordinary human, with fears, doubts, and desires. Through wisdom, ethical living, and meditation, he discovered the end of suffering, and he offered this path to all. In his own words, "What I teach now as before, O monks, is suffering and the end of suffering." His message was simple and direct. There is a way out. When the Buddha attained nirvana under the Bodhi tree, he did not vanish into nothingness. Instead, he awakened to a dimension of freedom that transformed the rest of his life. For 45 years, he lived in the world, walking barefoot from village to village, teaching kings and beggars alike. He experienced heat, cold, sickness, old age, and criticism, but his peace was never shaken. This is the living proof of nirvana, that even amidst life's storms, one can rest in unshakable serenity. The promise of the third noble truth is therefore radical. It tells us that human beings are not condemned to chase happiness endlessly, like thirsty travelers drinking salt water that only deepens their thirst. There is an alternative. By releasing craving and clinging, we can discover a peace that does not depend on possessions, status, or circumstances. In a world where so many chase fleeting highs, through wealth, fame, relationships, or distraction, the Buddha's message cuts through with clarity. What you are searching for will never be found in what is impermanent. The true end of suffering lies in letting go, in extinguishing the restless fire of desire, in realizing the timeless peace of nirvana. The path leading to the end of suffering. The Noble Eightfold Path. If the first noble truth is the diagnosis, the second noble truth is the cause, and the third noble truth is the possibility of a cure, then the fourth noble truth is the prescription, the practical path to healing. The Buddha called it the Noble Eightfold Path. Far from being abstract dogma, it is a guide to living wisely, ethically, and with deep awareness, so that the roots of suffering can be removed. The Eightfold Path is often pictured as a wheel with 8 spokes, known as the Dharma wheel. Just as a wheel turns smoothly only when all its spokes are intact, so too a life of liberation requires the harmonious practice of all 8 factors. They are not rigid steps to be followed in sequence, but interdependent qualities to be cultivated together. Right view, everything begins with seeing clearly. Right view is understanding reality as it truly is, not as we wish it to be. At its heart, this means understanding the 4 noble truths themselves, that life involves suffering, that craving fuels it, that freedom is possible, and that the path leads to that freedom. In modern terms, right view is like recognizing that chasing endless consumerism will never bring lasting joy. Without this honest recognition, no transformation is possible. Imagine someone lost in a forest. If they mistake the direction, they will walk endlessly in circles. Right view is like climbing a tree and finally seeing the landscape from above, realizing the right path to take. In daily life, cultivating right view may mean pausing before reacting, asking ourselves, is this action truly leading to peace, or is it driven by blind craving? Right intention. From clear vision arises wholesome intention. Right intention is about the inner motivation guiding our choices. The Buddha highlighted three qualities here: the intention of renunciation, letting go rather than clinging; the intention of goodwill, non-harming, love for all beings; and the intention of harmlessness, compassion in thought and action. Think of someone in traffic who gets cut off. The habitual intention might be anger, honking, or swearing. Right intention would be to pause, recognize the other driver's humanity, and choose patience. It does not mean becoming passive, but acting from wisdom rather than impulse. In a world where much suffering arises from careless intention, cultivating right intention is a quiet revolution of the heart. Right speech, words have immense power. They can heal or wound, unite or divide. Right speech is speaking truthfully, kindly, and meaningfully. The Buddha advised avoiding lies, gossip, harsh words, and idle chatter. This is not about becoming silent, but about using speech as a force for connection and understanding. In modern life, this applies not only to spoken words, but to emails, texts, and social media posts. Consider how much harm arises from online insults, misinformation, or thoughtless comments. Practicing right speech might mean pausing before posting, asking, is this true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? By aligning speech with truth and compassion, we purify not only our communication, but also our own minds. Right action. Right action refers to ethical conduct in our behavior. The Buddha emphasized refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. More broadly, it is about living in a way that does not cause harm to others. Picture a stone dropped into a pond. Every action we take ripples outward, touching countless lives. Right action is choosing to drop stones of kindness rather than harm. In today's world, this might mean being mindful of how our consumption affects the environment, how our choices impact workers in distant countries, or how our personal relationships are shaped by our integrity. Right livelihood. Our work takes up much of our lives, so the Buddha included livelihood as part of the path. Right livelihood means earning a living without harming others. He specifically discouraged trades involving weapons, human trafficking, slaughter, intoxicants, or poisons. In our modern context, this invites reflection on whether our careers align with our values. Are we engaged in work that fosters well-being, or are we complicit in systems of exploitation? While not everyone can instantly change jobs, even bringing mindfulness to how we approach our work, treating colleagues ethically, resisting corruption, prioritizing integrity, aligns us with this principle. Living the path in the modern world, applying the Four Noble Truths. Today, the Four Noble Truths were taught more than 2,500 years ago, yet their wisdom feels timeless, as if they were spoken for the challenges of our own age. Though the Buddha lived in a world without smartphones, climate change, or global economies, he understood something eternal about the human heart: that we suffer, that we crave, that we cling, and that we long for peace. To live the path in the modern world is not to imitate monks of the past, but to discover how these truths breathe within our own daily lives. Think of the first noble truth, the recognition of suffering. Today, suffering may show itself not only in sickness or poverty, but also in subtler forms: anxiety about the future, loneliness in the midst of social media connections, the burnout of endless striving, the quiet emptiness of consumer culture. Acknowledging these forms of dukkha is the beginning of wisdom. It means we stop pretending everything is fine when deep down we feel restless. It means having the courage to say, "This hurts. This is not satisfying. There must be more." The second noble truth points us to the causes of suffering: our endless craving, our insistence that things be other than they are. In modern life, this craving is amplified by advertising, algorithms, and social pressures that constantly whisper, "You are not enough unless you buy, achieve, or perform more." Recognizing this craving is not about blaming ourselves, but about seeing the invisible forces that drive discontent. To pause before the urge to click, to buy, to compare, that pause itself is already a moment of freedom. The third noble truth offers hope. It tells us that freedom is possible, even amidst the chaos of modernity. Nirvana may sound distant, but its seeds are found in small daily releases. When you forgive instead of holding a grudge, you taste release. When you let go of an unhealthy comparison on social media, you touch peace. When you sit quietly and simply breathe without needing to be elsewhere, you glimpse a freedom beyond craving. These moments, repeated and deepened, reveal that liberation is not fantasy. It is practical and near. And the fourth noble truth, the Noble Eightfold Path, is our guide for living this truth in the present age. Right view today might mean questioning the narratives of consumer culture and seeing clearly what really brings happiness. Right speech could mean choosing honesty in a digital world of curated images and half-truths. Right action might involve ethical choices about what we consume, how we treat the planet, and how we relate to others. Right effort becomes the daily discipline to cultivate kindness instead of cynicism, mindfulness instead of distraction. Right mindfulness may be as simple as putting down the phone during a meal and actually tasting each bite, being fully present with the people before us. Right concentration, nurtured through meditation, provides a still center amidst the noise of news feeds and constant notifications. To live the path in modern life is not to escape society, but to bring wisdom into it. A doctor can practice right livelihood by healing with compassion rather than profit alone. A teacher can embody right speech by encouraging truth in students rather than just grades. A business person can integrate right action by ensuring fairness and sustainability. A parent can cultivate right effort by planting seeds of patience instead of anger in the home. We may think that the Buddha's teachings require monasteries, forests, or distant retreats, but the heart of the teaching is universal. Suffering is here, craving is here, freedom is possible here, and the path is here. Whether in a bustling city or a quiet countryside, in the role of a student, worker, parent, or elder, the Four Noble Truths are not ancient relics, but living instructions. In a world that moves faster each year, where technology outpaces wisdom, and where outer wealth often hides inner poverty, the Four Noble Truths call us back to what is essential. They remind us that the deepest purpose of life is not endless accumulation, but awakening. To see clearly, to live compassionately, to let go of clinging, to taste peace, that is the real success, the real freedom, the real wealth no one can steal. The Buddha once said, "As the great ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so too my teaching has one taste, the taste of liberation." Whether applied in ancient India or the 21st century, that taste is the same. The end of suffering, the discovery of peace. So let us not treat the Four Noble Truths as abstract philosophy or distant ideals. Let us live them in our daily steps, in our work, our relationships, our choices. For when we do, the ancient promise becomes present reality. Suffering can end, peace is possible, and life can be lived with clarity, compassion, and joy. A final reflection. In the end, the Buddha's teaching is not about escape from life, but about entering it with open eyes and a free heart. We suffer, yes, but suffering is not the final word. There is a cause and there is a cure. Each of us carries within the possibility of freedom the capacity to awaken. The Four Noble Truths are like a compass pointing us home. They do not demand blind belief, but invite honest seeing, gentle letting go, and patient walking of the path. In a world of noise, they remind us of silence. In a world of endless desire, they whisper of peace. May we remember that liberation is not far away. It begins in this very breath, in this very step. And may each of us, in our own way, walk toward that freedom the Buddha called Nirvana, the end of suffering, the taste of peace, the heart's true home.